Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to American LFC, the podcast where two American brothers talk everything Liverpool Football Club. We have an incredible guest with us this weekend. Brandon Pink, thank you for joining us. Hillman, women's soccer coach. We're going to be talking about that later on in another episode. But today, right now, we're talking the match weekend review. Brentford defeated by Liverpool 4-1. Eli, how are we feeling?
Great. How are you?
I'm feeling very well. Brandon, how are you feeling?
Oh, awesome. I have to warn your listeners, I'm a Spurs fan coming in, but I have a special love for Liverpool too, so I love to see Jurgen Klopp get a win. So I can make believe for a little bit with you guys here, I think.
Okay, that's great. I think it would be great to hear from an outsider's point of view. Okay, so should we dive right into the structure of this game and how we felt about everything?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, So my first impressions just right off the bat were the first 8 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, were absolute chaos. And I think that's down to the brilliance of Thomas Frank and Brentford at home.
Yeah, I agree. I actually rewatched most of the game today to kind of freshen things up. Yeah, and the first 8 minutes were very chaotic. I think Brentford actually had a pretty decent chance there in the first 10 minutes that, they probably should have scored, and it could have been a completely different game.
Yeah, absolutely. It wouldn't have been out of the realm of normalcy for Liverpool to go down in the first 8 minutes of a game, as that has been the tradition of this season for some reason. But I think we should start with Brentford, though, right? Because what did they do? What did they do right? Brandon, what do you think they did as tactically, as a coach yourself? What do you think is Thomas Frank set up correctly to take on Liverpool?
Oh, yeah. So if I know Brentford, and especially Brentford recently within the last season or two, they've kind of had a little bit of a reputation as like giant killers, right? I think their low block seemed like they were kind of playing similar to their low block in like a 5-3-2 sort of formation. Very, very tight, very tough to break down. But they also are incredible on the transition too, right? And I think they've got the athleticism. I think they got the patterns to really make teams play when they don't control those transition moments. And, to be honest, the intensity I thought from them right off the bat was really good. Like Liverpool wasn't even forcing them into the low block for the first 8-10 minutes. It was chaos. And I think Brentford came to play, and, I think Liverpool was a little bit lucky there at the beginning. But, credit to Liverpool too. I think they rode that storm, and they kind of got things back into the pattern of play that they tend to like. So, Brentford, I think without scoring that first goal, they kind of had to go back to the shell and to plan B a little bit. And, if you're one of those low block and counter teams, you prefer to hit that early goal because that plays right into your game plan. And it didn't work out for Brentford, and the game state from there. I think, Eli, you're absolutely right with that observation. I think that game's very, very different without Brentford seeing that early goal.
Yeah, I think Brentford Ivan Toney had a great chance that he put just past the right post there before the first goal. That was like, man, that Ivan Toney, he's a player too. I think wherever
now
he
with
ends
Mopé
up
too
is going to be lucky. Mopé too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get into that later, but I mean, there's a lot of rumors about Arsenal with Ivan Toney going up front, which they clearly desperately need somebody who can actually put balls in the back of the net. But it is. I mean, just those two up front, they're so athletic. They are like on the counter. It's incredible. Toney can really his hold up play is unbelievable. And he's just got an eye for finding a pass too. I legitimately was like, dude, I thought he put it in the side netting on that first one like 6 minutes in. I was like, oh,
is
here
that
we
the
go
one
again.
where like Brentford recovers possession and then like within 3 passes he's got a shot on target, which I think Brandon just gets to what you're talking about, how deadly they are in transition. That like that's what 4 inches to the left and it's nestled in the side netting. It's a whole different game. So,
Yeah, it is a totally different game.
Sometimes you need luck to win championships.
Yeah, I definitely think Liverpool rode their luck a little bit at the beginning, and I think Brandon's right that it's like it seemed like there was a very clear precedent set by Thomas Frank coming out of the gates. First 10 minutes, hit him, because they were gobbling up second balls in the middle of the park too, right? Like they were. It was like, look, we had Endo, we had Curtis Jones and McAllister, which is arguably like maybe the second best, theoretically, maybe the second best version of our midfield, even though they've never played together before. So you're expecting there to be this very strong, hard-fought battle in the midfield, but man, they overloaded us. They were pushing up, like their wing backs were coming in, taking the ball out. It was one of those things when you create your own luck, because we couldn't get a sniff of a second ball. It was just like, man, they were all over us, and but it did seem like you were saying, Brandon, like right at 10 minutes, it seems like we were like, oh shoot, we didn't get the goal. All right. And then possession started to edge our way a little.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really tempting with a team like Brentford too, and I think there are a few other teams in the Premiership. Wolves come to mind, but this is not the low block and counter systems that you were seeing 5, 6, 7 years ago, right? I think a lot of the teams, especially some of these low block and counter teams, they have a really high level of technical quality too, and they're really well drilled in some of these transition moments. So it's, a team like Brentford, who you kind of see as a low block and counter team, a very defensive team, they can still make you pay if you give them those moments. And they dang near did.
I mean, they beat City twice last year, and they were beating City for 60 minutes, a week ago?
Well, I'm not sure. I actually think Brentford's next game is City, I believe.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, I'll check into it, but yeah, either way, Brentford does have like their actually City and Brentford play tomorrow morning at 11:30 my time. But Brentford has City's number, which is interesting because, like us, they can sometimes be exposed on the counterattack when you do have technically minded, very physical players like Ivan Toney, who can just be like, I can pick up the ball at the halfway line and just run it at your goal, and you're going to have to make a choice, which, I mean, he did end up picking up a goal, which is the first time that he has scored against Liverpool in his career, so I think that says a lot about us and our qualities to play against Brentford, and that they have been giant killers recently, but they haven't had our number. Luckily, I think Klopp has just been able to get the beat on Frank a little bit, and I'm super grateful because I feel like Brentford is absolutely one of those teams that if you don't take them seriously, and if you think for even a second that you've got this one in the bag, they will punish you.
For sure, yeah.
So, is there anything that you want to talk about? Some goals, Eli?
Yeah, let's talk about the highlights. First, I didn't really think there was any like officiating controversy too much. I think Jota
let's write down in our journals first time all season
we're not going to rant about the refs.
VAR.
As a Spurs fan, I have no comment.
Yeah.
Too soon. But the first goal, right? Just like the layoff from Jota and then Darwin's finish. Just those two things. Just absolutely. That's why we watched the game, right?
I will say, as somebody who's had some inconsistent finishing this year, when Darwin is firing, that guy just tucking that away into the net is sublime. So good. He's so good.
Would you take him at Spurs?
Oh, 100%. The first time I saw him was in the Champions League match. Was it last season? Benfica versus Liverpool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Rumor was that was the one that Klopp saw and then wanted him there. I would take Darwin at Spurs. Hands down. Probably even over Richarlison now. Even with Richarlison's goal running for him.
I think the chaos that Darwin brings, right? He's not always finishing the ball, but he does create a lot of chances for his team. Either he's taking the shot, or he's making the final pass, and just the way he plays, the energy he plays with, the physicality he plays with, and just his eye for either that pass or that shot is just amazing.
Yeah, he is both the most exciting and most infuriating player on the field at all times, which is there are some just absolute sitters 3 yards away from the goal where you're like tap-ins, like, man, come on, like first Luton Town game,
Yep.
And so that's a little frustrating, but so it goes.
And then, right before the goal, we have the injury to Curtis Jones, so hopefully he's not out too long. After the goal, Jota takes what looks like a pretty serious knee injury. He had to be stretchered off. I saw on the socials today that he's out for at least 2 months. So they were saying he should be back for Euro 24. Didn't sound like he would maybe be back for the Premier League season.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was hoping when you said a couple months that it was going to be like, oh, back in April, ready for May, the last couple games in May, Europa League final.
Yeah, but then this young guy that nobody's heard of named Mo Salah comes on for Diego Jota. And I remember texting you that when they were making the sub, I was like, I don't know about this kid that's coming on. And then, 10 minutes into the second half, he misses, a 2-on-1 where he's got one defender with him, and he puts it just wide of the goal, I think before the end of the first half. And then the second half is just like vintage Mo, assist, goal.
It's funny because it's weird because he kind of did feel like a touch off, like a little rusty. You're like, oh, his touch was a little bit there. Like that, for example, the first one that you're talking about, you're like, oh man, Mo firing scores that goal, right? Because his first touch was a little off, so he had to like make up for it. So he's extending a little bit before the keeper can get to the ground, and it goes out, which is probably a horrifying sentiment for any opposition team to think about, that he got a goal and an assist in a game that we were saying he was sort of rusty in.
Yeah.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but he had a pretty poor run of form after the last AFCON and then coming back. Was that right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for Mo Salah, but yeah.
Yeah, comparatively, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, look, everybody wants to be able to play for their country. That's really probably one of the large reasons why people do this, and I'm sure that it was a big disappointment for him. But as selfish Liverpool fans, it honestly could have been one of the best-case scenarios because, sure, he misses a couple of games of ours, maybe 2 or 3 games of ours, but he also misses like a possible of 8 or 9 AFCON games, which means that it's 8 or 9 games not in his legs, not in his hamstrings, not in his body this season when he could be playing for us, which again is selfish, but also like, okay.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so we got Darwin's first goal, right? We got Alexa McAllister assisted by Mo Salah.
Yep.
What are we thinking about that goal coming in from midfield?
I thought that was a
McAllister.
great goal. I mean, I think that's kind of like the ideal is that Endo is the one playing the 6 and McAllister can be the 8 that turns into a 10, because
That's what we originally bought him for.
Right.
Right, because clearly the plan was to get Caicedo or a defensive midfielder. And then we're like, okay, well, I guess we're going to go with Endo, who statistically I think has become a beast.
Yeah.
So,
and even McAllister in that position, his numbers are on par with Declan Rice is the 6. So
it's interesting because I'm really torn. I think we play better football when McAllister is the 6. I think Endo is better for us in defensive shape, right? I think that there are things that he does, but I just think that there are balls that get played out of the deep midfield in transition that McAllister does, through balls to Nunez, through balls to Mo Salah, Jota, like on a pin, that he can play from the 6 that we don't get from Endo.
Now, do you guys think, kind of looking into next season and long term, do you think McAllister kind of stays as your first choice number 6 and you look to strengthen elsewhere? Or because you mentioned, Nate, that he was brought in to play, the 8 that becomes a 10 in the system. And to my mind, I think that's where he's probably best. But like, dang,
Yeah.
that guy, he really can play any of those 3 midfield spots at a really high level.
It's going to be really. I think your question is super interesting. I think if Jurgen Klopp were staying and we were like status quo remain the same, and will we seek out a defensive center midfielder in the summer? I think probably yes. Right? I don't know who that would be. I think it would be like, is there another Declan Rice in the world stage? That would be the question, right? But the thing is that reality doesn't exist, and we will be playing with the new manager, and the new manager will bring a new set of ideals and point of view and tactics. I think the 3-5-3, what is it? The 3-5-2 that Xabi Alonso plays, or the 3-4-3 is what it is, right? With like
Yeah.
a Yeah, so it's like with wing backs as the back 4, and then we sort of do a double pivot type thing, I think, right?
Yeah, I think their build-up structure is like a 3-2 almost, with those wing backs moving pretty high.
Right.
Yeah.
So then the question is, is there a double pivot there? Is it like Granit Xhaka at Leverkusen is playing with one of their wing backs, right, as basically a double pivot, which would kind of lead you in to be like, yeah, McAllister and Trent Alexander-Arnold?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe there's an argument to be like, yeah, he might be our number 6 going forward for the future, because if we get Xavi Alonso, which I think would be incredible, I think that there's a lot of great opportunities for the midfielders that we have, because there's clearly, even though there are less midfielders in his style, there aren't, but they're just different, So it'll be interesting to see how that transition happens. What do you think, Eli? Do you think he stays as our 6?
Well, I do, and I think it becomes him and Trent in the midfield, and Connor Bradley is the starting right back.
That's if we play a 4-3-3?
Well, or, I don't know. They're gonna have to figure out something to do with Trent, because Connor Bradley deserves to keep playing.
I mean, I think you're right. Like, I think that there's an argument that you play with Connor Bradley in a 5 basically, right? And Connor Bradley is your right winger who goes bombing up and down, and right, your Robbo's doing your left bombing up and down. You have 3 center backs, right? Kwanzaa, Gomez, or Van Dijk, or whomever. They want to get a left-footed one. And then you have 2 midfielders, right, which would probably be McAllister and Trent. So that's 7 guys, and then we're talking about 3 attacking players up front.
Yeah.
So we're missing Soboslai,
Yeah.
Gravenberch,
Endo.
Cody Gakpo, Wataru Endo, all those midfielders.
Harvey Elliott.
Curtis Jones. It's going to be an interesting
It's going to
time.
be interesting to see what happens. Yeah, that's for sure.
I will say, and I think Liverpool's recruitment has been really outstanding, especially with the really positionally flexible players I'm thinking like at Soboslai and McAllister, Gakpo, some of these guys who can kind of play some of these wide attacking midfield, second attack, center attacking midfield, kind of more deep lying midfielders. You really can play a lot of systems with your current squad makeup the way it is. And I think that's going to make the transition between Klopp and whoever comes after him a lot more seamless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We're sort of getting to a relative time of our normal game reviews. Eli, do you think we should wrap this section up? I have a quick question that I'd like to pose hypothetically, and then maybe we can do an outro. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think the manager following Klopp turns into a Bob Paisley, so that means that he takes our very good team and elevates it to more trophies? Or do we think that it's going to be a Sir Alex Ferguson, David Moyes situation?
Are you asking me first?
Yeah, Eli, you can go first.
I think it's going to be, especially if it's Xabi Alonso, I think it's going to be Bob Paisley 2.0, and it'll just be Kings of England and Europe again.
Okay. Also, by the way, you got to imagine Pep's probably looking for the exit door pretty soon here. 7 years at City. That's a long time for him. Brandon, what do you think?
I'll struggle to make a prediction. I will say, if there's one club that can transition plan a successful transition away from somebody like Klopp, it's probably Liverpool.
Okay, great. We'll take that as a positive. We'll take that as
okay.
a win. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. This has been our game review for Brentford for the most part. I think there were a couple. We got distracted there for a little while. And how could you not? There's a huge change coming around the bend. I think we missed a couple goals that we didn't talk to. Mo Salah scored. Somebody else scored too. I can't remember. It was Cody Gakpo. Oh yeah, that was incredible. Counterattacking football.
Yep.
We still got it, baby. We still got it. Okay, let's sign off for now. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you guys next week after Luton. Have a good one.
All right, thanks.